Welcome to the third day of Roots Tech. It's been a wonderful event so far. Very excited to be here. Welcome all those here in the ballroom and those watching online. I'm Dr. Sheldon Martin, and today we are going to be discussing how discovering our ancestors and their stories can strengthen our own emotional wellness. As a reminder from the Roots Tech team to silence our electronics here in the ballroom and to not record any of this presentation. Well, what we're going to talk about today, there's four main categories that we're going to spend some time reviewing today that I think would be helpful in understanding how, as we discover our family and their stories, it can strengthen us emotionally. Here are the four areas. First, there is a power of connection to our ancestors. As we learn about their life and the experiences that they had, it starts to bring strength, or it can, into our own lives. Second, strength from beyond the veil. I know that we have many here at Roots Tech and across the world from a variety of faith traditions and different backgrounds. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I personally believe that there is a strength that endures after someone passes. Even if that's not the faith tradition or belief of someone, the stories and the experiences of these people can build into our lives and strengthen us, and we'll talk about that. Third, processing difficult family stories. I have, as a therapist and as an instructor and in my professional life in other areas, many times when we talk about family history, it's a painful experience for individuals. There are difficult stories in their history that are challenging for them to approach. And we'll talk about that and how we might learn how to approach some of those stories and how we can still benefit from that approach. And fourth, we'll talk about how we strengthen our family as we have shared stories. Well, let's start with the first one, that there is power of connection to our ancestors. President Russell M. Nelson, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, said the following: "When our hearts turn to our ancestors, something changes inside us. We feel part of something greater than ourselves." Dr. Marshall Duke, who is a psychologist at Emory University, said the following and found the following in his research: "Family narratives provide children with greater self-confidence and stability, especially in times of difficulty." Much research has been done to find that there's something in us that often draws to, because my ancestors did it, I can do it too. There is a story and a family narrative that can strengthen us over a period of time. In Scripture, that we believe in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there's a phrase in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 128, verse 15, that says, they without us cannot be made perfect, neither can we without our dead be made perfect. There is this connection that extends beyond ourselves. Well, I'd like to show you a picture that has had a great influence in my life. Those are my great-grandparents. That is Charles Stewart Martin and Clara Viola Eddy. That pile of wood makes me realize that I don't think I had a chore growing up. I never quite had laundry or dishes that looked like that type of work. But let me tell you a little bit more. My great-grandparents were deaf. Living a life as an individual who was unable to hear in the early 1900s, in a farm town of Manan, Idaho, they faced challenges that must have been difficult, many of which I can't fully understand. And yet, there's that pile of wood. There is something about the grit, the resilience, and the strength of those people that I can feel in my bones. This picture helped me get through a time when I was finishing my doctorate degree. This picture helped me get through a time when our family was experiencing great health challenges. Because it wasn't just a picture. It represented to me there was something bigger than me going on. I never met my great-grandparents. I hear stories from my father and his siblings and others. I read some of the journals that were kept. But this picture, along with others, continually strengthens me to recognize I can be strong because they chose to be strong. Let's talk about the next element of what we want to discuss today. There is strength from beyond the veil. This is a quote from Joseph F. Smith, a former president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who said the following: "When messengers are sent to minister to the inhabitants of this earth, they are not strangers, but from the ranks of our own kindred, friends, and fellow beings, our fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, and friends who have passed away from this earth. Bring messages of love, warning, reproof, and instruction." Elder David A. Bednar, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, said, "I promise protection for you and your family as you take this challenge." The challenge was to participate in family history work or sharing and learning and discovering the stories of our families, when we take that endeavor seriously. As we start to think about our ancestors, there can be a strength that is beyond us. The crowds cheering us on, those who've come before. And depending on an individual's belief, they may believe that that connection is stronger at times than others. But regardless of your religious beliefs, there is something about our ancestors that is just in us. In our family, we have developed a motto. Our Martin motto has become, "Don't be average in attributes." My wife and I have tried to teach our children that being average is not bad in any way. You can be average at sports you play. You can be average at school. But don't be average in how hard you work, how kind you are to others. Don't be average in attributes. There's a part of me that hopes, just as as a father and as a human being, I hope that message that I feel so strongly about endures in my family. I think our ancestors who have come before had similar types of approaches and mottos that got them through difficult times. We have learned that as we discover their stories, not just find their names, but learn who they are, try to understand the life that they lived, there begins to be a strength that we feel inside of us. The next principle I want to discuss: processing difficult family histories. When I was in graduate school, we did an exercise where everyone would draw a family tree and you would go back as far as you could just by memory in class. And we had certain symbols as we were learning about diagnostic codes and other patterns, behavioral patterns that can persist through generations. And so we weren't diagnosing ancestors, but you would indicate certain things. If there was a known heart attack, or if there was a known ailment or something, and we would mark other things as well. We would mark such things as, did we know if there was alcoholism or another addiction? And we would look, and And as we would do this, we would find that many times, at some point, there was just a cycle breaker. That some of those patterns didn't go beyond and go to the next generation. It was a fascinating exercise. But sometimes family stories can be filled with challenging experiences, divorce and separation, abuse. There can be very difficult stories to want to learn and draw strength from. But I want to talk about a couple of principles that might help us in these situations. It's important for us to practice empathy. I really appreciated learning the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is I feel bad for you. Empathy is I'm seeking to feel with you. I don't understand others' individuals' circumstances in life. But if I know that they're scared, I can understand what it feels like to be scared. If I understand that they're angry, I understand what it feels like to be angry. That starts to develop some empathy between me and this person of maybe a little bit deepened understanding. The second is to seek support. Some of these stories might need and require us to process it with those around us who can strengthen us, can support us, can help us. Third, as I've alluded to, be a cycle breaker. If there is a pattern in family history, and sometimes there's nothing that's, completely predetermined, but you can start to see patterns of negative behavior that you don't want to continue. It's great to understand and recognize maybe I can be part of breaking the cycle. Fourth, turn to God. At times, there are some stories where we might just need strength beyond our own. So as we practice empathy, learn about our ancestors' choices, we must remember that they lived in circumstances that we never fully understood. And understanding their trials can help us offer them the same grace we hope others extend to us. I want to be very clear. I am not suggesting that some of these difficult stories alludes to or means that we have to come to a point where what the pattern was okay, or that it wasn't hurtful, or that it wasn't painful. There should always be healthy boundaries in healthy relationships. But I am suggesting that at times, as we learn about the difficulties of their life or the circumstances, we often develop an empathy for their story that helps us be a little more patient with some of the warts that we might see as we learn about them. Seek support. Family history can stir up some deep emotions at times. We may come across a document, a journal, or a new piece of information that maybe we had not understood before. Or maybe we were very well aware of it and it hurts. It's okay as we go through this process to seek support from those around us. Talking with trusted family members and friends can help us process difficult discoveries and find healing. Be a cycle breaker. Knowing our family history empowers us to change harmful patterns. President Dallin H. Oaks, a member of the First Presidency, has emphasized that through the atonement of Jesus Christ, we are not bound by the mistakes of our ancestors. We can be, end quote, we can be the turning point in our lineage. There is something that can strengthen us and empower us to recognize there may be certain behaviors where we are the ones to decide, I don't want that to move forward. Or to have and gain great appreciation as you learn and discover stories of another ancestor that was brave enough to make that choice. to honor that, to recognize the difficulty that may have been. And turn to God. Turn to Heavenly Father for understanding and peace. Most difficult situations do not have simple bumper sticker solutions. There's not a quick catchphrase that is going to bring all healing. There might be some things that just feel bigger than us. He is eager to help us learn, forgive, strengthen, change, including when it involves our family tree. Next, strengthen families through shared stories. Elder Garrett W. Gong of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles said, "We each have a story. Come discover yours. Come find your ancestors. And with them, we will be blessed to know we are part of something greater than ourselves." Much research has been done on this topic, and it has been identified that storytelling helps us enhance our resilience. By developing these stories, these shared narratives as a family, we can start to actually strengthen our resilience. As alluded to, we start to draw strength and realize I can face something difficult because I know others who have faced things that have been difficult. And those connections do not just need to be biological and DNA. They can simply be people that you learn of as you are doing your discovery that strengthen you, and at times they may not even be related to you, but their story can be something that you draw strength from. Research has also shown it has an increase of emotional intelligence. We start to be able to connect better with others and give grace more often as we recognize that individuals lived in difficult times, they had difficult situations, and then we start to learn a little bit more patience with ourselves as well. It also can strengthen family cohesion. It can be a bond that starts to bring us together. So I would like to share with you a story that is one of the more culminating stories of these principles I have ever come across. And I have the good fortune that it happens to be my father-in-law. My father-in-law, I'm going to show this, and some of his grandchildren are watching, and this is known as the picture when Grandpa had hair. We think it might be one of the only ones. As he shares, he felt that his hair was entirely gone by 26, and so this might be one of the only pictures where he has hair. My father-in-law is still living. He's in his 95th year. But I want to tell you a little bit about a backstory that demonstrates these principles in a way that I have never come across before in my life. My father-in-law's name is Mel Pethel. When he was a young boy, his parents got a divorce, and it was a very difficult divorce. There were 5 children. In that hearing, the 2 boys, Mel and his brother David, went with Dad because they were old enough to maybe be able to start tending for themselves as 8 and 9-year-olds. And the 3 little ones were going to go with Mom, but very quickly ended up in foster care or being adopted. Mel never heard from his mother or those 3 siblings again for many decades. When Mel grew up, you hear his story, and sometimes it's hard for me to understand. Things like, how many women did your father live with that was a stepmother or a girlfriend? I don't remember. I can't keep count. I remember at least 20. How many places did you live? Oh, I don't know. At least 30. How many schools did you attend when you moved? At times, 3 and 4 in a year. At times, skip a year. It was a chaotic childhood filled with trauma. He remembers that he and his brother, at 12 years old, were on their own, and they found themselves on a farm helping out and just started living there for a time. This is quite a while ago. I'm sure that would be less possible today in many places in the world. And then they would reconnect with their dad, and through all of this trauma, he had someone that was always there. That was his brother, David. And the way these two were going to break this terrible cycle was they were going to join the military. That would give them a little bit of an income. They were kind of on their own again, living in Idaho Falls at 17 and 18 years old, and that's what they were going to do. His older brother goes down and wants to sign up for the army, and he's not heavy enough. So he tells this family story of coming home and just eating banana after banana after banana until he feels sick and then goes back and weighs himself again. Now he's heavy enough, so they take him in. This one person who was with him through all of these traumatic experiences went to the Korean conflict, soon became missing in action, never to be found again. Here's Mel, yet again, in a situation when there's no one around. He always longed for and wanted to know about his mother, about his other siblings. He stayed in touch with his father the rest of his life. In fact, they worked together in an upholstery business. But his father didn't offer any details. He would ask, and the questions were eluded. One day, a man randomly is driving through the small town of Ukiah, California, and sees a sign that says Pethel & Son Upholstery. The man has this thought, that's a unique last name. I had a foster sister with that last name. He stopped, went in and visited, and this truly was the foster brother of Mel's sister Frances. And they were reconnected in a very beautiful way. His father didn't say much. In 1970, just before he passed away, he gave Mel a stack of papers before he passed. In those papers, for the first time in his life, Mel was able, and with his dear wife Miriam, who is an expert researcher and genealogist, they were able to identify a couple of things that they did not know before. They left some clues. The papers included some clues about when his mother remarried, what her last name was. They found a little town with a person with that name, but they didn't want to disturb something that had been almost 40 years. So in their kindness, they wrote to the postmaster in the Midwest a letter saying, I think this is my mother, but that, I don't know. I don't even know if she's alive, and I don't want to upset her. I don't want to introduce something. I'm wondering if there's a way you could tell me if this is my mother and if she would want to talk to me. The postmaster, in his goodness, went to the sister, Aunt Bertha, who went over and did visit. It truly was Mel's mother. And she did want to talk to her son. That is a picture of Mel and his mother. They had not seen each other in 36 years. Mel not knowing if she was alive, she not knowing whatever happened to one of her sons. Mel had some news to share about his brother. There was some catching up and some healing that was needed. Well, they wanted to reach and find these other two siblings, but what could you do? Well, the family, Miriam and Mel, they had a friend that wrote an article, and it ended up in the church news. It was distributed through the United States. At the very end, it kind of described the story. Mel's siblings, not even knowing, they weren't members of his faith. I mean, just they were trying something to say, here's some information. I wonder if anyone out there knows. Well, the church news article is published, and one person that reads the article reads it and has this thought. My brother and his wife, they adopted a boy from Los Angeles. His name was Roy. I think this is him. That picture you see there on the left, that's not the church news article. That's the local newspaper in California. This started to become a real story. It truly was his brother Roy, and they were reunited. A short time after that, they receive another phone call. Imagine the miraculous connection that this would take. A Relief Society president in Tennessee reads the story and says, this sounds like my neighbor, but that's not her name. Goes over and she talks with her neighbor. This neighbor, who now did have a different name than when Mel last saw her, was truly his sister. Her name was now Lori. July 24th, 1973, Mel, Roy, and Lori spoke on the phone, and it was the first time that these three siblings had spoken in 37 years. They could hardly remember each other's existence, the little ones. They kind of vaguely knew that they had siblings out there, but they didn't know. This is a picture of Mel's 90th birthday party, and he and his wife Miriam were there in the front, and that's not all of his children and posterity. That's a lot of them, but there have been more since. That Mel and Miriam had 7 wonderful children, and they have families. And I look at this story and I think about how the principles were applied. Mel and Miriam practiced empathy. They allowed each member of his family to have their own experience. Mel deeply wanted to find them and was also gracious enough to recognize that could be a very difficult experience for them, and so always had great precaution. Asking the postmaster, finding someone nearby. He was truly empathic of what the other siblings and his mother might be feeling. He practiced real empathy in that journey. He sought support. He had the support of his dear wife, who was a fantastic researcher, his family. He had friends writing articles. There was a community around him that were showing him that he did not have to face this feeling alone. This feeling of, who am I? Where do I come from? Mel became a cycle breaker. I have studied human behavior most of my adult life. It's not about degrees, but I want to share this with you. I studied human behavior all through my master's degree in mental health counseling. I studied human behavior all through my doctorate degree in integrated behavioral health. Every indicator that I could line up about what Mel experienced, he should not be in that picture with that family. It is very rare for a child to experience the trauma that he did and not be in very dire circumstances. This picture, to me, becomes great evidence that individuals can become cycle breakers. And he truly was. He let go of bitterness and despair. There are very few people I've ever met in my life who are more optimistic, who see the good in everything around them. An individual who has every reason logically to think, to be angry, to be upset, and to feel that it was unfair is the person I look to among the most in my life of kindness and compassion. Above all, Mel turned to God. There were many nights when he would share the depth of loneliness that you feel, especially in those days when he was not with his dad. His brother, he was pretty sure, was not coming back. He didn't know where his other siblings were, or if they remembered him, or where his mother was. Those were some lonely, dark times, and yet he is among the most optimistic individuals I've ever met. He turned some things over to a higher power that he came to learn were not going to be his to carry. So if you look at this as a review, we're each part of big families. The human family is very large. The eternal family stretches through the eternities. We are connected in really unique and miraculous ways. The theme of this conference is to discover. I hope that we can discover more than just names and dates and places. I hope we can discover who these people were. What can you learn about them? What circumstances did they grow up in? As we do that, we know that it will help us gain perspective about their experience and our own life. Like that wood pile, I start to believe I can do difficult things. We start to build resilience. Many of you, amongst all of us probably, there are stories where we look to people who came before, and the demonstration of their resilience inspires us. It helps us recognize that there have been many who have faced similar things before, and they kept on pushing. We can draw strength from that even without even meeting them. And it strengthens our emotional resilience. My invitation today is, as we discover, to not just look for names, not just look for dates. Don't just look for filling out the chart, but to discover who these people were, both laterally and upward. The ancestors who came before, those may be living amongst us now. Discover who they are. Discover what it is that makes them who they are. I'm going to close with another story. 1970, so this is a year when I just shared with you that Mel had this turning moment of receiving documents in which he didn't ever have before. 1970 was also a very impactful year for my family history on my other side. In 1970, my father left for the Vietnam War as a 19-year-old kid, and my mother, 18 years old. They had been married a few weeks when he left. While he was in Vietnam, his brother passed away. So he came home. He was able to see his family, my mom, for a brief time, and then went back. Not long after that, he got the news that his father had passed away. He came back and did not have to go back to war, but that year was very impactful for me. A few years ago, my mother passed away very unexpectedly in something that none of us thought was coming. She was way too young to pass. And I think and still draw strength from the stories I continue to discover from family as close as my own parents. I don't know how my parents made it through the start of their life with that type of setup. My mother then sent 2 of her sons away to war 8, 9 different times. She sent sons away on missions for the church, and they came back. She had a life of sending her children, and it was the most difficult thing that she faced. I still draw strength from the resilience of my own parents. I draw strength from the resilience of my great-grandparents. I draw strength from my father-in-law. I'm currently drawing strength from my own children as they face things that I never had to face when I was their age. I'm trying to discover and understand how they do it as well, and that also brings strength into my life. So as we're here at Roots Tech, and as we go and we learn all of these wonderful things, and we take pictures, and they're able to talk to us now through AI, which is so great, and we start to find names that we have never found before, and we're searching records that we have never had access to before, I would invite us to pause and not just fill out the name as fast as we can, but try to identify, is there something about this person's story that intrigues me? I promise you, if you do that, you will feel an emotional wellness build up in you. You'll learn of their stories. You'll learn of the experiences they had that can still bring you strength. I started with the picture of my great-grandfather, Charles Stewart Martin. I always saw on the census that he was born in a place called Wilson, Weber, Utah. I grew up in LA County, so that didn't mean much to me. When my wife and I got married, we lived in Provo, Utah. For those worldwide, that's about 40 miles south of Salt Lake. We lived in Spanish Fork, Utah. That was about 50 miles, south of Salt Lake. We moved to Arizona. I lived in Gilbert, Arizona for a time. And when we moved back to Utah, we were looking for a home, and we found one, and we loved it, and we're still there, and that was 6 years ago. One day I was having a particular hard day. Work was hard, life was pretty tough, and I was just reading about how we can be connected to our ancestors in miraculous ways. I didn't know what I was kind of doing, so I opened up and I started doing some search, and I remembered. I kind of had forgotten, but I remembered, oh yeah, my great-grandfather, although he lived most of his life and passed away in Manan, Idaho, he was born in Wilson, Weber, Utah. I live in Weber County now. Where's Wilson? Because I lived in West Haven. I started to look and to find. In the early 1990s, 2 small unincorporated cities were brought together, Wilson and Kanesville, to make West Haven. The house I live in is a few miles away from where that great-grandfather was born. I had no idea. I went and visited his father's grave in Ogden. I visited another great-grandfather's grave that was a half a mile from my house and probably had 80 to 100 people in this small little cemetery. And there was I lived next to my great-grandfather, second great-grandfather. I know that as we learn these stories, they will strengthen us in times when we're facing difficulty. Thank you. We've been asked to leave time for some questions, a question and answer for some of these areas as we discover family stories. Are there things that we would like to learn or understand that might help give strength in any of these situations? Yes, and if you do have a question, I think it's helpful if you come to a mic so those online can hear the question. You might not have raised your hand if you knew I was going to give all those instructions after, huh? I apologize. Oh, man, I'm feeling worse and worse as this goes. Thank you. That's so kind.
I'm the one that writes the histories in our families, and right now I'm working on my husband and my life story. But my husband grew up with an abusive life, physically and emotionally. But I think it made him who he is today. He made it into a positive thing. He's strong and is a wonderful person. That's not the case with his siblings. I'd like to write his story. He doesn't talk about it much. So how do I approach this?
It's a very good question. One, I think it's important that whenever we talk or do write a history about something that's sensitive, that we don't need to use great detail. We often don't need to use something that could become emotionally overwhelming. If the person is still living, I think it's important to walk with them on their terms, on how they might want to talk about it. I know that could be tricky when we're trying to capture a true history, but I think there's ways that you can do it where it can be addressed or alluded to or something given that helps indicate some of the circumstances that he pushed through and made him who he is. But I would say make sure that he's okay.
Definitely.
That he's processing this the right way, the way that feels right for him. And then I would also say when you do capture it, oftentimes you can get the story with sometimes not the detail when the detail is going to be really difficult to write and read later. Be honest, but avoiding some specifics might be okay too. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hi, I'm a military podcaster, actually, and military spouse. I record veteran stories and interview them so they can share it with their families. I got a little odd question for you. Have you ever recorded your dad's experiences? Do you guys have those down?
We have made a noble effort. I don't, they're watching right now, and so I'm a little hesitant to say, oh yeah, we've got it, right? But we have tried to capture it, but it's something that we're trying to make sure that we understand better.
Follow up, as a military spouse, there is a huge amount of military members leaving the military now post the 9/11 situation, and the military spouses are running into a situation with trying to help their husbands navigate PTSD. I also try to interview military spouses who've done this with Vietnam vets and other generations to kind of help give this new generation of military spouses resources, mentors. Because there's people who've been there, done that, and did it successfully, as it sounds like your mother has. Yeah. Would she be interested in speaking with me? Or could I give you my information and you could talk to her?
Possibly. My mother, no, she's passed away.
Oh, dang it.
But maybe my mother-in-law, yes.
Okay.
I think the principle you're highlighting is really important. We can draw strength into our own family, even from stories that aren't about our family. You have a perfect example. veterans of war, that is a difficult thing to understand unless you have lived it.
Yeah.
And those who have lived it may capture some things that become quite strengthening to others in that situation. I have brothers who have been deployed and been to war many times. I don't understand war like they do with even some of those that they served with. Outside of family, there's something that they strengthen each other through stories. That's something I don't understand. So I think that it's a very noble effort. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
34 years ago last night, I was sitting up at Dayspring Hospital with my husband, and I had just put him into treatment for drug addiction. He has been clean for 34 years. He never went back out after that.
Wow.
But I have spent, we're just finishing our 30 ARP mission. And so he's not ashamed of talking about things, but he also had a pornography addiction. And sitting in these meetings the last couple of days, it's come to me that we really need to share our story of recovery. There's not many people that can stay together in a marriage like we did. But I'm really hesitant to talk about the pornography addiction because I'm not sure how that would, I mean, my kids know about it, my grandkids know about it. I mean, we've been in recovery our whole lives, but I don't want someone looking back and saying, you know, thinking my husband's horrible or something because he's fought these addictions all his life.
Yeah.
And so how would you handle something like that? How would you share that?
Make sure that it feels comfortable for both of you. And like you said, he's not horrible. So what you capture, you make sure the story is clear that he's not horrible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming today. And I hope you enjoy Roots Tech for the rest of the sessions today. And come back next year. Thank you.